Do you feel drawn to learn more about witchcraft and the occult, but feel lost on where to start? Then welcome to Get In Loser, We're Doing Witchcraft, a podcast all about what it means to be a witch and where to get started on your journey.
Join us as we navigate through various witchy topics and share what we have learned about the craft. So get in, witches, as we talk about oracle cards. What was that? Like a rumble?
Yeah, I think it's downstairs. Let me tell Mike to turn the bass down. Did I tell you? So our TV was broken in the move. Our huge, big, beautiful TV.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, it was like cracked. But here's the thing. I'm pretty sure this is why, and so I won't let Mike get rid of it. We have kept the box that the TV came in for the last, like from Illinois to England, and then from our English house to our other English house, or like the on-base house. And then when we got to the on-base house, Mike threw the box away. He was just like, well, they can just make the box for you. And I'm like, I would rather keep it, but he threw it away. Anyway, that's why I think that our TV was broken, is because it wasn't in the box it came in, and so it wasn't wrapped properly.
Yeah.
Because when it got here, it was cracked. And so he was like doing all this research. We were going to get like a projector, but then he was like, I don't really, after doing research, he's just like, for the price and stuff, like he's just like, the quality of the video is not even that good for like how much it costs.
Yeah.
So he's just like, we're going to, and we'd have to mount it on the ceiling, and we don't even know like what's up there. So anyway, I came home from work one day, and he came home, or he had gone out and bought this expensive ass, it's a little bit smaller than our previous TV because it was so expensive, but like a OLED, like super fancy LED TV.
Yeah.
And a whole ass sound bar and fucking subwoofers. And I'm like, okay, you do know our living room backs up to our neighbor's living room, so I hope you're not like rumbling them awake. So anyway,
I didn't tell you, Nyx has been having some issues. Like she had some eye gunk, and then she was like, her butt was bothering her. So Anthony took her to the vet while we were in Oklahoma, and they were like, maybe it's just conjunctivitis. We'll give her some eye drops or whatever. Then her butt started bothering her. So I had to take her to the vet yesterday. And they were like, so with these issues being so close back to back, and after we treat one, she gets another, I'm going to tell you it's probably food allergies. And I was fucking love this journey for me. So they gave her a shot. The shot cost $100, and it only lasts for 1 to 2 months. And so I was like, just talking to her, I was like, well, you know, we used to make dog food for Kessie and Lucian, because she was like, you know, you can buy her different food, but cross-contamination is really high in dog food because companies just don't give a shit. She was like, so you can either buy expensive allergy dog food or, you know, you can start making dog food again. And I was like, I guess we'll just start doing that. So I fucking make her a batch of dog food last night. Spoiled ass princess dog. And then she eats it, and she's like looking at me like, more? And she's like trying to like lick her bowl, like, hello, it's empty. Yeah. And I'm like, you're not getting extra.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I need to make Gizmo's dog food, like, because I've been like, I was making it, and then, but it's like hard when you work. Like, when do I have time for this? I need to make it in bigger batches, I think. And we also don't have an Instant Pot or anything, so I'm making it like in a slow cooker. I've been buying him like this special dog food that has like no chicken and like, you know, the things that I think he's allergic to. And he's like, when I took him back to the vet, they were like, oh yeah, he doesn't even need to be put on the medication for his paws. Like the allergies on his paws, like the fungus infection or whatever. It's just like, it looks like whatever you're feeding him is like getting rid of it. So we know it was a food allergy. And I'm like, perfect. But the food that I'm buying him is so fucking expensive. And so I need to start making it again. So
the vet said that with food allergies, that's really common in a lot of small breeds, and then pits and pit mixes, which she's a mountain cur pit bull. So
yeah.
So now I had to make dog food again.
Yeah. A little shit, but they're
A
so
little
cute,
shit.
so you have
She
to.
is cute. Yeah, she's worth it, I guess.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All
I guess let's get to it.
What are we talking about today?
Oracle cards.
To start this episode, can we just talk about the pronunciation of tarot from people that only read oracle cards? Did you run into this at all?
Yes.
They're like, tarot, 2-row cards. And I'm like, have you never heard the word tarot?
Yeah. Like, I feel like if you're making a video, you should kind of, I mean, it's one thing if, like, obviously, because we mispronounce a bunch of shit, but it's like not necessarily obscure, but something that's like not in English or something like that we're not familiar with.
And
everybody has heard about tarot.
We like, definitely try
to
look up
pronunciation. You can't tell me you can't just Google real fast. How do you spell? Or like the people that call it tarot. And I'm like, what?
Tarot?
Yeah, that is not it.
Like, where do you live that you've never heard the word tarot before? That's what I wanted to know. I like, there were so many oracle card videos on YouTube that I watched because starting off this episode, like, I knew nothing about oracle cards before doing this research. I've never used them. I've seen the decks in stores, but I've never like flipped through them, you know? So like I didn't know pretty much anything about them coming into this, but I know how to say tarot and oracle.
Like, right.
Just the
You're not
the
like
amount
oracle.
Of people. Yeah, those oracle cards.
Yeah.
The amount of people though that were like tarot, 2-row, tarot.
Yeah.
Why?
No.
Why are you doing this to me? Why are you the way that you are?
Yeah.
So, with all of that, what is an oracle card? Oracle cards, like tarot cards, are a form of divination. In mythology, the oracles foretold the future in a vague and allegorical way, and oracle cards are simply just a deck of cards that do the same thing.
Yeah, so they're a set of cards used for personal exploration and ritual, and they can be used for spiritual insight. And usually oracle cards, they'll consist of a picture and either a phrase or a word that's associated with that picture.
Oracle decks are a fluid system, meaning that the way they're created may change from deck to deck. So each deck is its very own thing, and its system is dependent on the person that creates it and their intention for that deck. The belief is that working with an oracle deck will give you spoken wisdom or wise guidance for the questions that you're seeking. They work on synchronicity through meaningful coincidence. Oracle cards work through asking the question and then choosing the card, trusting that the right card will then be drawn to you and will provide you with an answer or the guidance that you seek. So if you're looking at oracle versus tarot decks are a fixed system and they have 78 cards. They'll always be the same at their core, where the cards will always have the same meaning. The art might differ from like deck to deck, and on occasion, the author might slightly change the meaning, but it's going to be the same at its core. Oracle decks do not have a predetermined number of cards, and there's no set arrangement or system. So where tarot cards always have a set number of 78 cards that are split between 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards with a specified number, suit, and or imagery assigned to each individual card, Oracle decks usually range between 35 to 60 cards in the deck. And again, they depend on the intention of the deck's creator, and they're meant to be very visual and evocative. Finding 2 decks of oracle cards that have the same card in them is very unlikely. Though if you do find similar cards between decks, their meanings are likely to be very different from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so pulls with an oracle card deck will help you see what your soul is struggling with and how to take steps to repair it. They're more interpretive than tarot cards, so they can mean basically whatever you want them to mean. Usually they will include guidebooks and that will have like some meanings associated with it. But the actual meaning of the card that you choose, it's very subjective to how you're feeling, what you're seeking guidance on. It's very, very different between people, between oracle decks, between everything. And you rely on your own feelings and intuition to decipher the unique meaning to you. And that's why it can be so varied based on the deck you're using, based on who is reading the oracle cards. It all just depends on your intuition and your own feelings.
Oracle cards often follow a general theme, meaning that every card will be named after the theme for that entire deck. So an example might be a deck themed around goddesses or maybe even like botanicals. And then each card would be named after something within that category. So if the deck was goddesses, you might have a triple goddess card or a card for Bridget or, you know, any goddess within it. And then it'll have a meaning to it. But again, it's all based on who's creating the deck and their intention. The description of the card will also often be listed on the card through a phrase, a mantra, or an affirmation. So with tarot, you know, you have the book that comes with the deck and it explains the meaning for each card. So when you pull it, your card is only going to have like death or, you know, the suit and the number that it's for. So you would have to go and like look those up if you didn't like know them by heart. And then, you know, with the oracle card, it's all just there for you. So it says whatever that card is meant to be. And then based on like your intuition for the pull or the question that you're looking for, you would base it off of that. Being that there's no system, you're not going to be able to bounce from deck to deck. You would have to learn each deck in order to be able to use them. That might be what makes you go more towards tarot versus using oracle cards. And I think that's probably why I also like lean more towards tarot, because tarot has a system. I like order and like being able to go to the book and be like, okay, this is what this one means, or look it up, versus like an oracle card, you're not going to be able to like look up the meaning of it, or, you know, it doesn't come with a book that's going to tell you. It's just going to be like happiness or something. Some of the cards that I've seen, it was just a single word like serendipity. So you have to like figure it out.
Well, on the side book, yeah, the guidebooks might like, some might include a guidebook, but it's like, again, like super subjective. So it might not even like, it could be so vague.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos of people like talking about oracle cards, because it was also not easy to find information on oracle cards online. Like if you look it up, it's mostly just like, here's a bunch of different oracle cards or oracle card decks or whatever. Not a lot of just information. Like if you research tarot, you can find so much information about tarot decks and how to use tarot and like why to use tarot. Whereas like that just wasn't there for oracle cards. I had to rely on YouTube a lot for this. And I know a lot of them said that most of their decks didn't come with that. So they might have like a couple of decks that had a little booklet that kind of went along with it. But for the most part, it was meant to be subjective. And it, for the most part too, was like positive. Whereas like tarot gives both kind of that negative and positive. So I don't know. It's interesting. So as I was saying, oftentimes oracle decks are meant to be positive affirmation cards, and they can be pulled like a single card a day. So basically like in the morning, if you pull it and then use that as your positive affirmation for the day is what I was getting from a lot of that. You can do single card tarot pulls, but then you have to interpret the meaning of them for that particular card at the beginning and end of your day. Whereas some of the oracle decks might just be like, you know, you pull it and it says like happy. And so for the day, your mantra and your affirmation is just to like be happy and spread happiness. So unlike tarot, oracle cards do not give positive and negative cards. The focus is on the positive and the affirming. And then given that oracle cards are mostly positive with rarely a negative card in a deck, they can sometimes give unclear readings or sway a reading towards the positive due to the lack of negative or neutral cards.
Yeah, and I saw this on multiple websites and I was like, what the hell? Like, this is obviously people who don't know anything about tarot or like don't use tarot very often. But they kept saying like, oh, oracle cards are different because it's not like going to predict your own death like tarot cards can. Tarot cards cannot predict your own death. Like I saw this multiple times and I was just like, At what? Like, so I just have to include this. If you haven't listened to we had like a 3-part series on tarot. Go check that out. One of them is a Supercast exclusive one, but the first, like episode 1 and 2 are on just our regular feed. Tarot cards will not predict your death. Is there a death card in tarot? Yes. Will it predict your death? No. That's not what that means.
And I think this also goes back to, and this is way back, early podcasting for us, like the whole stigma and the media and the way they portray these things. Like you never see tarot portrayed as a good thing in a movie or TV show, in books. It's very like, unless you're reading like a witchy themed book, it's rarely seen as a good thing. And they always act like the death card means you're going to die.
Yeah. And that's not the case. Yeah. So. And so I feel like if you're writing an article about oracle cards, and you're trying to compare it to something, you should understand what that something is you're comparing it to before you just start talking out of your ass. But that's a whole other thing. So just
I don't know if you came across this so much in your research, but again, like there's very little out there on oracle cards on the internet when you're talking about like research itself. So a lot of it was like blogs, which is fine if you are an expert in that and you write a blog piece on it. But I ran into the issue that so many people that I came across, their article on oracle cards, and it would be like, oh, if tarot's too scary for you, or if you're more into the woo-woo version of magic. That was an actual term used, the woo-woo version of magic. And I was like, what does that even mean? Yeah. And maybe you should be using oracle cards instead of tarot cards. And I'm like,
here's the thing. You are not less of a witch if you don't work with tarot and you only work with oracle cards.
Right.
So, like, if anyone tries to tell you, tell them to fuck right off, because
literally
that's
all
ridiculous.
Divination. So,
yeah. Also, there's a jet flying past. Sorry, guys, but you know what? It is what it is. So after, so we've talked a bit about like what oracle cards are, what they're not. Let's talk about why and how to work with them. So oracle cards are an easy gateway into divination itself. There are no rules. You can arrange the cards in any specific spread, but you don't have to do that at all. Like Tiffany said, you could just pull a card. And they can be used in mediumship and ancestral magic. So this is focusing heavily on intuition, opening up your third eye, picking up surrounding energy from the earth and, say, ancestors or other spirits around you, like your spirit guides, whatever that the case may be. That's how I've used oracle cards, just in relation to like mediumship and like reading people's aura and stuff like that. But it's really an easy way to get into divination. So if you are just coming into witchcraft and the occult and just the metaphysical in general, and you're wanting to practice divination, you don't know where to start, tarot cards seem like a lot and you don't really want to like invest the time in it, oracle cards is a great way to go.
It is. Oracle just allows you to just kind of jump in and start without having to learn a system or, having to learn the meaning of all the cards. Oracle cards have their meanings on the card for you, and then they tend to just make it simple in that way. The decks are meant to be easily understood, though I feel like, I don't know, I feel like coming from only having used tarot, and not that I, use it proficiently or like all the time, but I feel like swapping would be more confusing for me, because you're already like, this is a system, whereas like you get an oracle deck and it's like, this is fluid, however you interpret it, or however the person that made this deck interpreted it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never used them, so I can't give like the personal account on it, but I feel like not having used them first, it might be harder to swap back to something that's fluid versus like systematic.
Yeah, because you're going to be looking for that system and order when there's not. Yeah, but it is like, I will say, like, I thought it was going to be a little bit harder, but it's not. Like, it's pretty, like, just intuitive to kind of switch that mindset. I think you would have a good time with it if you're ever interested in the future with doing it. But
one day.
Yeah, one day. So when it comes to choosing an oracle card deck, basically all you have to do is listen to your intuition and choose a deck that speaks to you. You can choose a deck based solely on the aesthetics of that deck. it doesn't matter. Like, all that matters is that you feel drawn to work with that deck. So it's not like there's no like which there's not with tarot either, but there's that pervasive thought out there that you have to be gifted your first tarot deck, which makes witchcraft and just working with tarot anyway like very exclusive, and I hate that. You don't have
Yeah.
to be gifted a deck when it comes to tarot or oracle cards. If you are on Amazon and you're like, oh, I really like this botanical oracle card deck, buy it.
Yeah.
Like, do like, if it speaks to you and you love it, or you just love the artwork, buy it. That's all you need. You just need to feel drawn to it.
I feel like that gifted portion comes from a time when, like now, we don't spend as much time with others like around us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe our family and our friends, we do, but if you don't have family or friends that are into witchcraft or, divination or reading tarot, you're never going to be gifted a deck unless like
Right.
you ask for it. Like, say for Christmas, they're like, what do you want? And you're like, this tarot deck, you're not
Yeah.
going to be gifted it. Whereas, like, back in the old times, people had to rely on their neighbors. So it was more likely that you would find people with common interests as you. So if you were practicing divination, you would probably have friends or neighbors that you knew also practice. So it was more likely that you would be gifted something versus
Mm-hmm.
like today. I feel like we have a disconnect today where, if they're not an immediate family or friend, we don't talk to them.
Yes.
I know I don't. I talk to one person in my neighborhood and she like isn't even my next door neighbor. There's like a house in between us.
Yeah.
So we don't have that connection anymore with people where you would be gifted something.
Yeah.
So if say you have an oracle deck and you want to get started and you don't know how, it's actually pretty simple. So the way that you use oracle cards is very similar to using tarot, just without that like strict system. Basically, to start, you want to center, ground yourself, connect with whatever you consider as your higher power. Make sure you clear your mind so that when you're asking questions, it's very clear the question that you're looking for an answer to.
You could also meditate beforehand and focus on the part of your life you want guidance on, or the part of your life you want to focus on that day, week, month, whatever you're reading for. And you can ask a question or open yourself up to whatever energy is out there that can guide you. So it doesn't even have to be like, I'm feeling down, is money going to come my way, or is
Yeah.
happiness or love or whatever going to come my way. It could just be like a, what does today bring for me? Or like, let me just focus on the energy and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning. Like, they're meant to give you guidance, like knowledgeable guidance, versus like you ask a question and it's like, here's your direct answer. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you are asking a question, though, you would bring your question to the surface or ask it out loud. And this can be something as simple as, what do I need to know today? And this particular question is one that is suggested to new practitioners because it lets you bond with your deck and get a feel for your cards. They consider this the beginner friendly question in Oracle and Tarot, even. Once you get a feel for your deck and you've bonded with them, you can then use them to gather guidance and answers to deeper questions for yourself or whoever you're doing a reading for. You would shuffle your cards and draw a single card, and that card is considered the universe's answer to your question. So, when choosing a card, just do what feels right. There's no wrong or right way to pull a card. You can do something like shuffle until a card pops out of the deck or until it flips itself over, and then that card could be the one that you pull. You can shuffle and cut your deck however many times you want to, and then draw the top or the bottom or the middle card. You can shuffle and then choose a card that you feel drawn to, like intuitively. Like, honestly, there's no wrong way to do this. You can do this however feels right to you. And don't let people tell you that there's a wrong and right way, because there's not.
Yeah. And you could even, whenever you're shuffling, this could be in like you're ready to pull a card. This could be one card that you pull. This could be
Mm-hmm.
5 cards that you pull. It doesn't matter. It really depends on if you're following a particular spread Or it could be solely dependent on how you feel in the moment. So if you're like shuffling your oracle card deck and you're drawing a card and your body is saying 3, I'm going to draw 3 cards today, draw 3 cards. Or if you're like, if you go into it thinking I'm only going to draw 1, but then once you draw that card, you're like, okay, I need more clarification. Draw a couple more. Like there's nothing saying that you only have to draw 1 or you only have to do a particular spread. Do whatever feels right to you.
Yes. And I feel like that's one of the biggest differences. Like tarot, you don't have to follow a spread and you can do whatever you want and whatever feels right. But a lot of tarot cards also have particular spreads for particular things that you're seeking. Yeah. So with this, again, it's just fluid and based on your intuition and however you're feeling. It could, like Sam said, it could be a single card, it could be 20 cards, like literally whatever you want to do. There's no wrong way. Like I said earlier, you can also just pull a single card at the start of your day to have a message for that day. As stated before, oracle cards tend to focus on positive affirmations. So drawing a card at the start of your day can just give you a mantra for that day. Once you have your card drawn, look at the card, try to notice the first thing that pops in your head when you see it. Like, what is your intuition saying about this card based on what you're feeling or whatever question you have? Or, you know, if you're just opening it up to like whatever energies want to pop out at you, like when you look at the card, what is the first thing that you feel intuitively about that particular card? If you're into journaling, you can keep an oracle card journal and then write down a sentence or two based on your intuitive thoughts for that card. Or you can even draw something or like doodle something that you relate to that card for the day, and then come back to it at the end of your day and reflect on how that card was relevant to you for the day or for the question that you were asking. Allow the meaning of the card time to sink in too. Like sometimes that answer isn't going to be like apparent to you right away. Sometimes you're not going to understand its meaning until, you know, later in the day, maybe later in the week. But when you do recognize what the card was trying to tell you, make sure that you acknowledge its meaning and how it pertained to you and to what you were asking. And this can also go back to like the journaling portion. If you're pulling a card every day and, you know, maybe at the end of today, you don't really understand what that card was trying to tell you, but then something later happens in the week and you're like, oh my gosh, like it all clicks. Go back, like see what you thought about it that day, and then, you know, add to that journal entry on like what the meaning was now, you know, I don't know, 3 days later.
Yeah. And after this too, you can even consult your guidebook if you want. But obviously before that, write down what comes to your mind intuitively when you look at the card and think about how it relates to the question that you asked or the part of your life you wanted to focus on. But having that guidebook there, if your oracle cards come with a guidebook, then you can always go back to that and just make a few notes about what the guidebook says relates to this card.
And I feel like maybe this too is why I was more drawn to tarot versus oracle. Like I myself am chaotic in my day to day. Like from 1 minute to the next, things are crazy all the time because we always have like 1,000 things going on at one time in our house between both of our work schedules, you know, my husband's flying schedule because he's getting his pilot's license. I have the herbal stuff that I do, like the academy, and then like having to create all of these things for like my homework. And then of course, like the podcast research, and I want to do things on my own, like reading. So like for me, having such a chaotic like structure in my life, I feel like tarot was more appealing because it had structure. Like I could pull a card and know that that card means the same thing if I'm using a different deck than I used yesterday. And I like having that book so that I can go and be like, I think I know what this is, and then go look at the book and be like, oh, okay, this is what I was thinking versus like what it says. Whereas like Oracle, you might have a book, you might not, who knows, maybe, you know. So I feel like it's like too loosey-goosey where I'm like, I need structure. At the end of the day, remember to not like stress out over an oracle reading. These cards are simply meant to be a tool that aids you in your divination journey. If the fluidity and lack of structure is hard for you to grasp, like me, Maybe that just means that you aren't meant to use oracle cards and that you're meant to try a different tool of divination. There are so many different ones. I feel like we've talked about a few of them on here. I know a good deal about a few. I don't know if you have ever searched just divination tools in general. Have you seen the Wikipedia list that comes out?
No.
Like, it's like if the Wikipedia for divination tools is like alphabetical ordered, bajillions of types. And I was like, I didn't even know all these existed because I looked at it when I was like, what are some like obscure ones that I can put? And I was like, never mind, this is too much. So if, you know, again, if you need something different, you can try, you know, tarot cards, which Sam's already mentioned, but we did a 3-part episode, and those were the 2 that are available to everyone are episodes 30 and 31. The final episode was a Supercast exclusive, so if you aren't a subscriber and you want to listen to that episode, you have to subscribe to get that one. Make sure to check out those if you're into tarot, if you're tarot curious. A few other examples would include scrying, and there's also different variations of that, reading tea leaves, using a pendulum, osteomancy, which is like reading bones, and even just automatic writing, which is something simple that pretty much anyone can do. And I think we talked about that was our meditation episode.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, I believe our meditation episode is where we gave quite a bit of information on it. But like Sam said, we have talked about it a few times on here. I think the biggest thing to remember is that there's no rules that you have to follow. Like even with tarot, yes, tarot is structured, and yes, you know, there's specific spreads for different types of things, but everything is really just a suggestion for like where to get started, and just do like what your intuition is telling you to do. Let it guide you and just do what feels right to you. Don't overcomplicate it, because when you overcomplicate it, like me, that's where you run into these issues where, like for me, like if I look at an oracle deck and I'm like, oh my God, there's no structure, there's no booklet for me to look at, like overcomplicating it makes it so that like using it isn't a useful tool for you.
Absolutely.
So just keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid. Like White says in the
Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, it's a Michael Scott thing. Anyway,
I love Michael Scott.
Me too. Yeah.
I told Anthony, for our other like book loving listeners, Sam and I have been reading, what is it called? The Queen of Myth and Monsters.
Yes.
I finished it. I like flew through it because I did it on Audible, and I was like listening to it 24/7 while I was doing other stuff. But like every time like a spicy scene would happen and Anthony was home, I'd be like, oh my God, it's happening. And he's like, calm down, Michael Scott.
Never.
So yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. That book series is so good. I haven't picked it back up, so I'm still on like the same, like I think chapter 5, but I've been Discovery of Witches, man. I had to start the second book. Like that's going to be our next book club book, FYI. Book club members.
We have already decided we're just keeping on this series because it's so good.
It's so good, and I don't want to take a break from it. So we're just going to finish it. So the next FYI book club members the next book starting in March is book number 2 from Discovery of Witches. So just FYI.
Starting in February.
Well, I thought we were doing the book, or comes out in February, right? February 1st?
For January.
It's January right now.
Yeah. So part 2, we finished the book. Part 2 comes out February 1st. And then for February, we read book 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. I mean, like it comes out though. Like it will come out.
Oh, the release date.
Yeah.
I thought you meant for reading it. I was like, no, we're reading it in February.
No. Yeah. No. I've already started because I'm like.
Samantha has already started. But for everyone else, that book will be read in February. Releasing in March.
So if you haven't read it yet.
We know this episode was super short, but that's because there's like no information on this topic.
Yeah.
It was so hard to find research on for you guys.
It really was. But if you like Oracle cards and you have a really beautiful Oracle card deck, and that's one of the things I like about it, because the artwork on Oracle cards is just beautiful.
Beautiful.
It's gorgeous. So if you have an oracle deck that you love, that's super beautiful, send us pictures. We'd love to see it.
If you have that botanical deck that I referenced earlier, that deck is gorgeous. I was I almost want to just buy this to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So. I have a friend who she has bought like a couple. She doesn't really she reads some tarot, I think. But she has like a tarot deck that's like beautiful that she wants framed. And I'm like, that is a really good idea. I kind of want to do
really cool.
Yeah.
You could do a giant, one big one, or you could do a bunch of smaller.
Yeah. I'm just that is such a good idea. Or even just taking one, and then drawing it yourself and making it a big, painting or something would be gorgeous.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. So. See y'all next week for this wonderful episode. I'm excited for it.
Me too. I am excited to do some of the stuff that we've talked about. You guys have no idea what's coming this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great.
That's it for this episode of Get In Loser, We're Doing Witchcraft. You can find our source material for this episode linked in the show notes. If you love this episode, we would be forever thankful if you leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you really love the show and want more Get In Loser content, check out our Supercast link provided in the show notes or search the Supercast website for Get In Loser, We're Doing Witchcraft. There you can purchase a membership to our podcast and obtain exclusives like getting episodes early, shoutouts on the show, access to our Ask Me Anything forum, our monthly newsletter, a promo code for merchandise, and more.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Get In Witches, or email us at we'redoingwitchcraft@gmail.com. Check us out next week for our first episode in our new Witch series, all about kitchen witches. Until then, blessed be witches.